Hey, it's Joelle. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing how to get yourself out of a slump, how you can get energized and inspired without relying solely on motivation. Today I'm going to share with you some habits and systems that will help you to build a sense of self-discipline that will allow you to become energized, productive, and achieve your goals. So for this portion of the video, we're going to be focusing on reflecting how you can work out what it is that is causing you to be in a slump. If you're in a slump, you're typically feeling low energy, you're not inspired, you're bored, you're tired, you're overwhelmed, you're frustrated. So one of the first things you can do is to journal. I always recommend journaling in all of my videos because I think it's genuinely such an important and effective habit. It helps you to have an opportunity to really understand your own inner workings and thoughts without you honestly realizing a lot of the time. Some of the things that we are going through are actually just the manifestations of our own negative thought patterns and thought cycles. So journaling is a really good way to identify those patterns that you may have within yourself. Another thing you can do when it comes to trying to understand why you're in a slump is backpedaling. Take a look in the last 2 weeks to a month and look at some of the events that have happened, some of the key things that have gone on that may have led you to get into a slump. Maybe you had a bunch of deadlines, maybe you didn't do so successfully at something, and that has caused you, maybe you're just generally feeling uninspired to get into a rut. There are a lot of reasons why someone may be feeling unmotivated. In order for you to overcome this, you are going to need to take some level of accountability and responsibility in really working out the root of the issue. By now, you've probably already worked out what is causing you to be in a slump, what is causing you to feel so negatively and downtrodden. So the question remains, why can't I get out of it? Answer, you're clinging to the idea of motivation. Motivation is one of the biggest myths going in this kind of productivity, personal growth, lifestyle space. The idea that you can just be motivated and become motivated and stay that way for a long period of time is completely unrealistic, and because it sets people up for this kind of false expectation that they should or will always feel inspired or energized, when in reality that largely is not the case. Motivation is very much based on feeling. It's based on your own emotions and your own emotional associations with whatever task it is you have to do. The thing with emotions is that they are very much changeable and temporary. So if you're relying on a temporary emotion to guide you through some of the most difficult challenges or periods of your life, it is not going to get you very far. That is why instead of relying on motivation, I suggest you rely on discipline. Discipline is the idea that rather than relying on personal feeling, you're relying on systems and structures to keep you going. See, discipline is very much based on the idea of regularity. It's based on the idea of structure, the idea of continuity, the idea of habit and routine, and that kind of familiarity aspects of things is what is going to keep you going and keep you continuing to do certain tasks. Now you've identified why you're in a slump and you've identified why what you're doing isn't currently working, we need to now talk about how you can fix it, aka how can you build discipline. I would suggest that you go back again to that root cause of your slump. For the rest of this video, I'm going to go on to identify 3 of the main reasons why people tend to fall into slumps and the specific steps you can take to address each one of them. The first reason why you may be in a slump is because you're in a state of burnout and being overwhelmed. Burnout essentially refers to a state of being overwhelmed with different pressures within your life or external or internal stress factors, feeling out of control of your environment and your own emotions and reactions to things. Some of the things that can commonly cause burnout from people tend to be like work, your workplace environment, workplace culture, difficulties at work, things like your academic life and pressures, deadlines, social situations, so whether it's relationship issues, friendship disputes, or family disagreements. Those are all kinds of things that can pile onto one another to cause you to feel overwhelmed and eventually to feel burnt out. If this sounds a bit like you, here are some of the things you can do to address burnout. Number 1 is to work on setting effective boundaries. And there are a number of different mitigations you can put in place depending on what it is that is specifically causing you to feel burnt out. These can be things like improving your work-life balance, making sure that you're dedicating enough time to rest, relaxation, recuperation, making sure that you're dedicating enough time to doing things you genuinely enjoy rather than things that can just be monetized or things that, bring in a wage or some kind of income. It's all about making sure that you have a balance of work and play. Another kind of boundary you may want to set are social boundaries. So this can be things like filtering or limiting your interactions with people that you find particularly stress you out or make you feel particularly overwhelmed. It can be referring to people that you have frequent disagreements with. It can be with people who simply perpetuate feelings of anxiety that you may already have by kind of just feeding into them rather than offering solutions. Those are kind of ways that you can set effective boundaries with people. The third thing I would recommend for addressing burnout is triage your tasks. When you have a bunch of priorities or a bunch of commitments you may need to attend to, writing them all down, categorizing them in order of urgency. How much time is this going to take and how quickly do you need to get it done? It helps you to see what your priority should be, where you should be directing most of your attention without having your mind focusing on every single possible task that you have to complete. If you're in a position where you're constantly feeling overwhelmed or burnt out or overworked, chances are you're taking on a little too much. Let's move on to the second reason why you may be in a slump. It's a task or outcome seeming undesirable. It is very difficult to feel like you want to do something if you feel like the task is going to be, if you feel A, like the task itself is going to be miserable or challenging or boring, and B, it can be challenging if you feel like you're not going to get anything good out of the task when you've struggled through it. Very real and very valid concerns to have, honestly. You need to work on changing your mindset. And how you do this is by using some of the 4 atomic habits. Make it attractive and make it rewarding. Now, it's very hard to make something like cleaning feel attractive because it's not. Like, one of the ways you can reframe these things is by looking at them as means to an end. This means you're looking at each single thing you're doing as a step towards achieving an ultimate goal or outcome. You're very goal oriented. So if you're making this undesirable task seem like a kind of a necessary step in order for you to achieve a kind of bigger aim, then you're more likely to be motivated to do it, even though the task itself isn't particularly agreeable. Another way you can make things feel a little bit easier and more attractive is to reduce resistance to the task itself. This means removing distractions and optimizing your environment. Now, I know for a fact that I'm the kind of person who does not do well when there are other people in my space. So one of the things I have to do sometimes is take myself or go into a room that is silent. Go into a room where you aren't allowed to speak, or go into a room where I'm by myself and not with anybody I know, so I can't talk, and therefore I can't get distracted, and therefore my work will eventually get done, in order to make it a little bit more bearable and accessible for you. Which is essentially when you combine an undesirable task with a desirable element. So for example, I'm not a fan of like folding clothes up. So what I do when I'm folding clothes up is I put music on so I can sing and dance and kind of vibe out while I'm doing the task, because it kind of distracts me from the like boringness of what I'm actually doing. And that's the kind of thing you want to do, is give yourself incentives to get undesirable tasks done. So moving on to the third and final reason as to why you may be in a slump, quite simply the fear of failure. And if you feel this way, honestly, you're real for that. It is very difficult not to have the fear of failure, especially if you're the kind of person who doesn't like to be seen in general. The idea that people are going to watch you and see you potentially not do as well as you might hope is very, very scary. And it can be a reason why some people just do not start at all, because they just don't feel up to it. They don't feel equipped to deal with the judgment or the skepticism or the criticism. But we cannot sit and rot in our fears. Instead, we need to face them. Number one, you need to realize that perception is very, very normal. People are going to notice you. Actually, just because they're looking at you, just because they're staring at you, doesn't mean they hate you and doesn't mean they're judging you for it. They may just be intrigued, they may just be interested, or maybe you're inspiring them. Anybody who is making fun of you or who is genuinely trying to make you feel little or small for embarking on your passions is not the kind of person you need to have around. The second thing you need to do, try and rework and rewire your relationship to achievement and attainment. There are so many of us who attach our self-worth to the things that we can do or the things that we achieve. To an extent, I get it. It's very easy to feel like you are the number, you are your mark, you are your grade, you are your degree, you are your job. But realistically, who you are is a lot more to do with how you treat people, how you exist in the world, how you impact other people. It is very normal to struggle with things. It's very normal to be imperfect at things. And I think recognizing everything you do, every step you take as a learning opportunity or as an experiment rather than a final destination can really help in that process of detaching your self-worth from your achievements. The last tip I want to give you, and this is really helpful when it comes to getting out of any kind of slump, is honestly speaking to have compassion for yourself. Speak to yourself how you would speak to your friend. We have this kind of superhero mentality a lot of the time where if we don't feel like we're doing well enough, we beat down on ourselves. We don't give ourselves grace to like recover, but we do it for other people. And sometimes we have to really take a step back, detach a little bit and be like, hey, you're doing a good job. Pat yourself on the back every so often and try to treat yourself with as much compassion as you possibly can, because if you won't do it, who will? Okay? That's all for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know down below in the comments. Let me know what kind of habits and mindset changes you're going to be implementing. If you liked it, then like it, and I will see you again next week. Bye!